All right, it's time for us to talk to Hilary Calvert, former ACT MP, former regional councillor, former city councillor, businesswoman, lawyer, on her take on the issues of the week. It's brought for this particular segment's brought to us by betterwellington.org.nz, the group who are seeking to reform the Wellington Council. And actually, I'll bring in Hilary now. Hilary, welcome to the show. Nice to have you back from Australia. You got back
Hello.
all okay? You're intact
Yep.
and entire.
Yes. Yes, that too.
Good on you. Listen, I just went to because I meant to read the introduction and the outro and the intro to say that this particular segment's brought by betterwellington.org.nz. But as I flicked on them this morning, I've just seen a press release they put out. Oh, it's a month ago, so it's poor of me not to have seen it, on how much Wellington ratepayers are paying to give advice to transgender people on sex. $40,000, $43,000 a year for 3 years, plus 40,000 extra in grants. Gender minorities, Aotearoa, are receiving of Wellington taxpayers, and that includes sponsoring a sex course online, which encourages you to urinate on your partner, have oral sex on your partner's anus. Oh, good God. Not telling a sex partner you're transgender before engaging in a sex act with them, but I would have thought they would have worked that out fairly quickly. Cruising or anonymous sex, chemsex, and a whole series of other things. That's not a good thing to spend taxpayers' money or ratepayers' money on, is it?
Well, absolutely. It's sort of like people used to argue that you shouldn't talk about sex, religion, or sometimes politics.
Politics,
You know,
yeah.
if you were just having a quiet drink with somebody. Certainly, you wouldn't think that it was the role of a council to do that. Not that I would like to see it brought back into perhaps it's school's role or anybody. I don't think if you can't find out what to do with yourself sexually, it's going to help you having a counsel. I mean, I personally haven't had any advice from a counsel that's been any use, but that particular lot of advice, I would have thought.
No. It's bizarre that a council
sort of like
would
a
think,
helpline, isn't it?
but it's bizarre that a council would even think of giving money to people to tell them how to have sex. I mean, but interestingly, heterosexual people are not getting that advice. It's only online sex courses for transgender people.
The question is partly, do you think that the councillors did that? Was it consulted on?
No, of course not.
Was it staff? If
Staff
so,
would have done
under
it.
what?
Yeah.
What staff? What reason did staff give for saying, for example, that we're short of money, which Wellington clearly is, and instead of using the money we've got on fixing the water supply or something, which would be a no-brainer, or even for some people doing things with cycle lanes and other things on the Golden Mile, this would be a thing to use money on?
Well, the Golden Mile
Hard
clearly
to
means
know.
something completely different in Wellington than it means somewhere else, just quietly, on the basis of that.
Yeah, hard to know how the mayor could think that was a good use of money.
No, well, who knows? Listen, Wellington's a court case, so we all know that, and we'll move on. But all I can say is to Wellingtonians, well, you voted them in, so you've got the answer in about 6 months' time to do something about that. Listen, you've just come back from spending a week or so in Australia.
Tori has just decided. Sorry, she's just agreed to be the Green candidate. Last time she was pretending to be independent.
Oh, she's going to be the Green candidate for the mayoralty.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, to be honest with you, though, while you're away overseas in Australia, well, overseas, you're in Australia, but while you're in Australia, the Benjamin Bussey affair broke here, in actual fact, which is still reverberating around Wellington and surrounds. Did that make the news in Australia or not?
No, because they're, of course, in the middle of election campaigning, and I think I'm pleased to say that any issues to do with Greens and things are fairly much not top of the agenda for Australians. I mean, be they, for the most part, climate change and other things, whatever they are, the Greens are struggling for relevance right at the moment. There is a clear demarcation between Peter Dutton and Albanese about whether they should keep using gas, because Peter Dutton says we need to keep using the answer for the future as renewables and gas. And Albanese's gone down, let's get rid of those evil fossil fuel things at all counts. And there's arguments about them having done all these programs about, I think it's solar or something, some sort of renewable, that were announced, 180 of them or something, and only 2 of them have been done. And they rely on people putting their energy back into the national grid, which they can't usefully do for the most part. And anyway,
I'll tell you something though.
there's a
You've
wee bit
just
about
mentioned
that.
something. You did mention something then, though. It was about, the Greens not having a big agenda or stuff like that. The difference is they're actually as popular in Australia as they are in New Zealand, but they don't have MMP. So in terms of the polls that I've seen, the last 2 polls in Australia, for the primary vote, the Greens still get 12 to 13%. But of course, they can't translate any of that into winning seats. I think they have one seat,
Yes,
maybe 2.
they keep saying, because their system is a bit like our in Dunedin anyways, voting system, you vote for your choice, and if your choice doesn't get more than 50% of the vote, then it moves down your pecking order or other people's pecking order. So they're like here, people say if you vote Labor, they won't get in without the Greens and the Nutty Maori Party. I'm not describing them as nutty, I'm just saying that that's what people say. Watch out who you're voting for.
Well, they
Voting for
are
Labor
nutty. They're
won't just be
completely
Labor.
mad. Yeah.
I'm not saying then, I'm just saying that that's the accusation, is that you'll end up with them. In Australia, they say that you'll a vote for Labor is a vote for the Greens.
How do they work that
Because
out?
the Labor, because the Labor person, a vote for the Greens is a vote for Labor.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because when Labor doesn't get, if Labor's the preferred option and it doesn't get its 50%, you who voted for the Greens,
For the Greens, their
will move
second vote
down
will
to,
be for the Labor Party.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And that's
and
the
you've
other
got to
thing.
get,
And you always
yeah.
hear that the One Nation Party, which is what's her name? The redhead lady,
Pauline Hanson.
Pauline Hanson, is really unpopular and nobody votes for it. Well, they hover between 6 and 9% of the polls all the time. So the irony is, again, they must, for their first preference vote. So they've got as much party vote in Australia as New Zealand First or ACT have in New Zealand.
Yes, it translates differently, of course. So
That's right. And
what they've got
presumably
in
their second
Australia
preference is to vote for Liberal National Party.
Yeah, well, they've got people called independents sometimes and called Teals.
Yes.
And
All
Teals
female, liberal females.
Yeah, they're thought to be people who pretend that they're going to go to the right, and then when they get in, they vote with the left inevitably.
Yeah. As
So
liberals do.
people are harassing the Teals to say, hey, yeah, but you're just a Labor Party in disguise person. And it was, to add a bit of levity to the campaign, one of the Teals' husband was caught defacing or destroying billboards of the opposition, which was the Liberals. So she was asked, the the woman who was the candidate, and I think that probably the sitting member, was asked what she thought of what her husband did, and she said, I'm not here to talk about what my husband does. But what the Liberals came out with it the next day was new billboards that said what they had said yesterday, but it said at the bottom of them, Michelle, keep your hands off this billboard, please. So
Fair
I thought
enough
that was
too. Yep.
sort of adding a bit of fun, because it was just continuing to remind people that the idea of destroying other people's billboards is not ideal. But
Did you get a sense as who's going to win the election, Willie, over there? Or did you get a sense that there were mainstream media that were favouring one party or another? Like our last election?
Yep, they've done like ours. I watched a bit of Sky, because Sky unashamedly is right wing, and we've got people who are pretending to be neutral, who are not very closet left wing, but we don't have sort of the platform's more free and open to ideas, at least.
No, we'd be seen as a conservative. I think we were described this morning by Andrea Vance as alternate media.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
You'd have to say some of the things she writes is a bit alternative.
I'd have to say that. She was very critical of the fact that Sean interviewed Winston Peters, which set off the Benjamin Bussey affair last week. She seemed to suggest that not just Winston Peters but Sean Plunket were misusing their particular authorities.
Yeah, well, the Benjamin affair, and there's no suggestion he's having an affair, but it's the general position, led me to think, what is it with the Greens? And I think what is it with the Greens is that, apart from the fact that they're just crap at choosing candidates, I mean,
yes, they are.
Whatever, beyond. But I think that green means never having to say you're sorry.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Because that was like last week when you've got Winston coming out saying Benjamin took all his posts down. So if that is an admission of guilt that they were the wrong thing, he doesn't know what is. Chloe came out fighting. Chloe came out saying to Christopher Luxon, why don't you get Winston under control? How dare he be critical of our poor wee boy? So I just think at the time when there was an opportunity, because quite frankly, the things that people have been saying about, had that been a conservative side of the ledger person who was heterosexual, saying things about pussy or whatever with his daughter on his lap, he'd have been in deep shit.
He'd be gone.
Absolutely deep shit.
He'd be gone, and he would have been sacked by the party leader of the time, whether it was National Act or New Zealand First, and they would have said, no, that's inappropriate, and we will not condone that at all. But then they also would have done something else too, just quietly. Those three parties would have checked out the dude or dudette before they actually got involved as a candidate, you would presume.